So from the moment you were born, you absorbed everything. Your mind was like a sponge. So everything that you were told, everything that you saw, everything that you experienced, and before you could even think for yourself, your childhood had already shaped what you believe it's possible. So if you grew up being told, okay, be careful, don't take risks, failure is dangerous and you're not gonna survive it, then of course you hesitate now. Of course now you overthink. If you were during your childhood compared or criticized, you learn to shrink. You learn to downplay yourself, to question your worth. If in your childhood love and validation were conditional, you might still be chasing external approval. You might still feel like no matter what you do, it's never enough, you're never enough. But here's what no one told you. You don't have to keep carrying these beliefs. Imagine waking up one day without that voice in your head that is telling you that you are not good enough. Imagine stepping into opportunities without hesitating, without having this fear of failure. Imagine no longer being held back by doubts that were never even yours to begin with. You have to accept and you have to understand that your childhood shaped your mind, but that doesn't mean that it has to define your future. Hi guys, I'm Adriana, welcome back to my channel. Today we're going to dive deep into the limiting beliefs that were placed upon us, how they controlled our lives without even realizing it, and most importantly, how to break free and rewire your mind for the life that you actually want and not the life that you were programmed to have in your childhood. So let's get into it. Your childhood wasn't just a phase. It was the foundation of everything you believed to be true about yourself and everything you believed to be true about the world. It basically set the stage for your confidence, for your fears, your ability to take risks, and even how you handle success and how you handle failure. The words that you heard repeatedly, they ended up becoming your internal dialogue. So if you were praised, if you were encouraged, and you were told that you were capable, you internalize that confidence, and your inner dialogue now has this praising, this encouragement, and this confidence. But if you were criticized, if you were belittled, or if you were made to feel like you had to earn your worth and you had to earn your love, that voice became one of self-doubt and hesitation in your head. Also, the behaviors that you saw modeled, it became your default reactions. So if your parents or your caregivers, they handle stress with anger, with avoidance, or with withdrawal, you likely developed similar coping mechanisms. Or if they struggled with money, with relationships, or self-worth, you absorbed those same fears and those same limitations as your own. The expectations, all the expectations that were placed on you, they became the limits of what you thought was possible. Were you encouraged to dream big, or were you told to be realistic? Did you see examples of people succeeding and thriving, or did you grow up surrounded by people who struggle and they were into survival? Maybe you were told to be careful, that this is too risky, or not everyone gets to be successful, and now you hesitate, you overthink, you play it safe, and not because you lack the ability or you lack the talent, but because your mind was conditioned to fear uncertainty instead of embracing it as a natural part of life. Maybe you were compared to others. Maybe you were made to feel like you had to earn love or you had to earn approval. And now you second guess yourself, and now you always feel like you're not quite enough. So the need to prove yourself never disappeared, because deep down you keep chasing that validation that you never received as a child. What no one tells you is that your brain, especially in early childhood, is in a highly susceptible state, because your subconscious mind is wide open and is absorbing everything without any filter. So before the age of 7, your brain is operating primarily in the theta state, meaning that it's in a state that is highly impressionable and it's soaking up everything as absolute truth. So that means that practically, if you were constantly told what you can do, those words became the code that now runs in the background of your head and shapes your life. And that's why positive thinking alone is not enough to override all these deeply ingrained childhood beliefs, because these beliefs are wired into the very foundation of how you see the world. But here's what you need to understand. Beliefs can be changed. So the same way they were placed in your mind, they can also be reprogrammed. And once you recognize this, you gain back the power to rewrite your story and to not stay the victim of it, to be able to break free from all this outdated conditioning and to create a new limitless version of yourself. So let me now explain why you can't just think differently, think positively, and think positively your way out of your current situation. So did you even wonder why it's so hard to just be confident, to just believe in yourself, and to just stop overthinking? The reason why it's so hard is because your beliefs are wired into your nervous system. So they're not just thoughts that are fleeting. They're deeply embedded patterns that they decide your emotions, that they decide your reactions, and even your physiology. So all of this is happening and you don't have actual conscious control over it. Your brain doesn't just store thoughts. It also stores experiences, it stores emotions, and it stores responses. And your brain stores all of that in a cellular level. Literally, it's wired in your cells. So when you try to think positively, your body will still remember that feeling of being judged, that feeling of being rejected or not feeling like it's good enough. And that's why even when you logically know that you are capable, that you are good enough, your body will still respond with fear, it will still respond with hesitation and with self-doubt, because that's all it knows to do. And this is why changing your beliefs isn't just about thinking differently, thinking positively, but it's about reprogramming your entire system. You have to reprogram your mind and your body. And your mind and your body needs new reference points. What that means is that your mind and your body needs new experiences that are going to replace all the outdated fear-based patterns that were formed in your childhood. I did try to think positively into breaking my cycles and breaking my old patterns and change the way that I was thinking. And I can tell you from experience that this doesn't give you long-term and permanent results. So I realized that it's time to actually try the hard way so I can break free from that cycle for good. So the way I did that was to catch the trigger. So I noticed when an old belief surfaced. So what situation made me shrink? What thoughts flood in immediately? And that allowed me to have awareness to break that cycle. So I paid very good attention to the physical sensations, to that tightness in my chest, to my heart racing, or that sinking feeling in your stomach, because your body remembers the old programming before your mind does. And that reaction from your body is your first clue that you have triggered an old belief. So then what I did was to try to interrupt the pattern. So instead of letting that belief run on autopilot, I physically disrupted it. So I will stand up, I will breathe deeply, or I will say something out loud to stop those racing thoughts coming into my head. And that allowed me to create some space between my thoughts and my reactions, because your nervous system needs a pattern interrupt in order to break the habit of defaulting to fear and defaulting to self-doubt. And then what I did was to challenge that belief in real time. So when that old thought appeared, that the thought that I'm not good enough, I consciously reject it. So I will ask myself, is this fact or is this just conditioning? I will try immediately to find proof that will contradict that belief by reminding myself of all my past wins, of reminding myself of my strengths, and of all the times that I pushed through despite the fears that I was having. And that will make that limiting belief outdated and not relevant anymore. So it didn't have any base and any root to still be hold. I would just took it out of its root and I just threw it out. And then what I did was to rewire with action. So you can't think your way into confidence, right? You have to act. You have to take the risk, you need to speak up, and you need to move differently. And that's because your body needs proof that the old belief is no longer true. So if you have always avoided speaking in meetings, if you avoided to speak in groups, I want you to challenge yourself to say something small. If you have always hesitated to take up space, practice standing tall and owning your presence and not trying to hide yourself and shrink away. And from acting differently, that usually builds courage in yourself that when it's repeated, it ends up creating a new behavior and a new belief. An important step here was reinforcing through repetition. So my old beliefs were formed through repetition, right? I heard them, I felt them, I experienced them, and I did all of that again and again. So in order to replace them, I needed to do the same, but to do the same with empowering beliefs. So using affirmations are not enough. I needed to pair them with an aligned action, because confidence, as I said, comes from evidence and not just words. Because taking that action is also going to give you the feeling of empowerment, of capability, of look at me go, I can actually do it. And that feeling is going to be the one that is going to keep that new belief alive and create a new neural pathway and try to enforce it. And finally, what I did was to try to regulate my nervous system. When you experience fear or when you experience self-doubt, your nervous system gets activated. So I learned to calm it down through breath work, through meditation, through different grounding techniques like walking in nature, being in nature. The more control you have over your physical state, the easier it becomes to detach from these old beliefs. So transformation will happen when you stop trying to think your way into a new identity and you actually start embodying it. You have to understand and you have to believe that your beliefs are not set in stone. The person that you are right now is not set in stone. Those beliefs, they were learned, and so that means that they can be unlearned. But you have to be willing to do the work, not just mentally, but physically, emotionally, and behaviorally. And this is how you take control of your life. This is how you become the person that you were always meant to be. By being that person, by embodying that person, and not just thinking like them. Now let's talk about how to rewire your mind for success and the whole unlearning process. So breaking free from limiting beliefs is not just about rejecting the old, but it's also about replacing them with something stronger and something more empowering. So these are some things that I did in order to do that. Firstly, I exposed myself to new realities. Your brain needs proof that different outcomes are possible. So if you have spent your whole life surrounded by people who doubted themselves, who played small, or who struggled with self-worth, then your subconscious assumes that's just how life is, that's just the way it is. So what you have to do is to show your mind something new. And the way I did that was by reading stories of people who broke the cycle. So I will study the biographies of successful people who came from backgrounds that were more similar to mine and that they were able to defy expectations. I also try to surround myself with people who think bigger and are not in a limited mindset. And you can do that by joining communities, by joining masterminds, or by joining groups that inspire that growth and ambition and self-belief. And I also immersed myself in environments that challenge my perspective. So I did that by traveling, by experiencing different cultures, by visiting people where success and abundance are the norm. And that way you expand what you see as normal, because what you repeatedly see, you internalize. Secondly, I created new reference points. So your brain builds belief systems based on repeated experiences. So if your old belief was that I'm not good enough, your mind is actively looking for evidence in order to support that belief. So the key is to override that narrative with some undeniable proof that you are more capable than you thought. So a way you can do that is to keep a proof journal. So write down your small wins, every compliment you receive, like a small moment of progress, no matter how small, every moment of progress, no matter how small, because your mind needs reminders. And the way that I added that to my daily routine is by adding this in my morning journaling. So I like to write 5 wins of the previous day, of the previous week, or the previous month, so I can remind myself and I can gather that proof. Another way that I used to create new reference points for my new beliefs was by setting up situations where I can win. What I mean is that I will take on small, achievable challenges in order to prove to myself that I can follow through and I can succeed. Another thing that I did that helped me a lot was tracking my progress in real and measurable ways. Numbers don't lie, right? Whether it's fitness, whether it's finances, whether it's personal growth. When you actually see the proof, your belief system shifts. I'm not perfect at that. There's some ways that I still slip up. I tried that by having a habit tracker, and by doing that, you can see in a measurable way how many times you showed up as that person that you said that you are now. And because it's right in front of you, it becomes way more real. Another key step in this unlearning process was using identity-based shifts. So most people, if they're trying to change themselves, they're going to do that through behavioral shifts. And they force themselves to do new things, and they hope that it will change the way of how they feel about themselves. But real transformation happens when you actually change who you believe that you are. So there are a couple ways of doing that. Firstly, instead of saying that I need to be more confident, what I did was to shift to that I am someone who takes action despite fear. And this eliminated all the hesitation, and it actually makes confidence your default. Like, I am a person that takes action despite fear, so I do things despite of confidence, and that gives me confidence. Another thing you can do is to adopt an alter ego, which basically is a version of yourself that embodies the traits that you aspire to have. There are a lot of celebrities that do that, like Beyonce with Sasha Fierce. And when you step into that identity, your decision making, it becomes effortless because it's aligned with the identity of your alter ego. And this is a very good way to help rewire your beliefs, because by doing that, it allows you to embody the person that you wish to be. Even though at the beginning it will feel like you're acting and like you're faking it, slowly you will start to adopt it, and you're gonna start seeing it as yourself. Also, you need to realize that identity shifts require daily reinforcement. So every day you need to ask yourself, how will the highest version of myself handle this situation? And then you have to act accordingly. To put this into your daily routine, I suggest to add this into your daily morning journaling. And I did that, and it really helps to remind me of who I'm trying to show up as every day. Another key advice is to reprogram through movement. So your beliefs don't just exist in your mind, they also live in your body. So your posture, your voice, your breathing patterns, they are all reflecting and reinforcing your subconscious programming. I can't tell you enough how much role this plays and how much it really helps. So one way I did that was by putting out the intention to move with power. So that means standing tall, having your shoulders back, breathing deeply, because really your physiology will rewire your psychology. I also did that by putting the intention to speak with certainty. So your tone and your choice of words, they're going to decide how your brain perceives reality. So I will try to avoid weak, doubtful language like, oh, I think, I hope, or maybe, and I will actually replace them with words that carry certainty, like I decide, I know, I am. And finally, what I also did here that helped me a lot here to reprogram my body was to engage in physical practices that reinforce confidence. my body started to free up so much blocked energy when I started doing Pilates and when I started doing more strength training, because when I allowed my body to move, all that blocked energy moved with it. So you can do that by strength training, by martial arts, by dance, by yoga, basically any movement that connects you to your body and to your power and reinforces your belief systems at a cellular level. It's very key for you to understand that unlearning isn't about erasing the past, but it's about rewriting your future. Your beliefs are nothing more than just repeated thoughts that you have accepted as truths. And you have always the power to choose new ones. So expose, rewire, embody, and act. Because the moment you stop waiting for the time to feel ready and you actually start becoming the version of yourself that you have always wanted to be, that's the moment that everything changes. So guys, the life that you want is on the other side of the beliefs that you refuse to question. Yes, you were programmed without your consent, but right now you have the choice. So that's it for today, guys. Thank you so much for watching. I appreciate you, I love you, and I'll see you soon.